All right. So who do we have in? We have Robin in.
We have Eric in, so I'm gonna scroll through the 300 people here and try to find Eric and like unmute him as well.
Okay.
All right. All right, Eric should be unmuted.
Hi, Eric, are you with us? Jocelyn Anchor says, hi, I'm streaming live on Instagram. Oh, fascinating. That's wonderful. And her username is msavvy, MSSAVVY 1969. So that's an option. Thank you, Jocelyn. I can't do that now. Okay. I really do want to get Robin Broshi into this meeting because she is the one the council member who requested this meeting. But I'll tell you what, it's 4:28. We're going to get started at 4:30 one way or the other because we called this meeting for 4 p.m. And Shino, can you let Robin know that someone is streaming on Instagram? She might be able to at least follow the meeting there until we can get her into the waiting room, because I'm not sure that I can solve her. If there's room in the waiting room right now, she should be able to get into it.
And then, you know, perhaps if you weren't planning on making a comment, but like if people have access to Facebook, would you want people to like switch over to make some room?
I don't know that we're streaming on Facebook though.
Oh, okay.
So she says, Jocelyn Anchor says, Jocelyn, are you here?
Oh, on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, I assume that's what IG means.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give it one more minute till 4:30, and Ushma has tweeted the Instagram live streaming that's happening, and it's 4:30. Okay, we are going to start. Since I know you are also a co-sponsor of the resolution that Robin put forward when she requested this meeting, I'm going to ask you to fill in for Robin.
Hi, Eric and Robin continue to be shut out, unfortunately. They've been trying all this time and they can't get in. So I'm feeling not very confident about moving forward. I think we need to actually vote on it. And if the majority council members would like to move forward, we can, but.
Well, we don't have to move forward. I agree with you. We should get all our council members in before we vote on any resolution. What I would like to do is hear from parents, because we have a lot of parents here who want to speak, and all of the council members, all of the folks who are here can speak. We're recording it. If the council members who are currently locked out want to review those comments, that's fine. We can delay our, I think. But right now, I really want to hear from all of these patient folks who have been waiting. So I'm going to open up for public comment. If, Shino, you want to address the resolution that you're a co-sponsor of now, you certainly can. You know, I can address the resolution that I'm a co-sponsor of, but I think most folks here have read them, and so they know what it says. So I'd like to hear from parents. Is there anything you'd like to say before we open it up to parents, Shino?
Emily wants to speak.
Yes.
Emily's waving.
Okay, let me unmute her. Do you see what her Zoom name is? Because I don't see Emily on here.
It's Emily Hellstrom. If you do the
I
search,
see
it'll show up.
Emily.
You do? Okay. I am doing the search and I see her. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Emily, go ahead.
Hi. Okay. Thanks for unmuting me. I know that Robin is having technical difficulties. She's tried on several different platforms now to get in and cannot. And obviously there have been a lot of very technical and very suspect problems with the rollout of this meeting, which I just would like to record that I'm very, very upset about. However, the impetus for putting out this resolution, the resolution that I was a co-sponsor for, is because we obviously are in extreme times. This is not a usual situation. And many of us, you know, have been hearing from parents throughout the district and throughout Manhattan and then greater New York that the switch to remote learning has been extreme. There are many, many stressors that are happening, not only within the city at large, within families. They can range from having the sickness yourself, your child sick, parent members sick, caring for multiple people at once, including your children, people with IEPs, you know, with students who have IEPs, multiple caregivers, situations where you have to be out of the house, no parent at home. I mean, the list runs on and on and on. And the added stress of trying to think about grading and if your child is going to be graded on some sort of system as opposed to a diagnostic of, oh my gosh, where is my child and how is my child moving, you know, learning, and are they moving backwards? Are they moving forwards? Are they staying in the same place? Is just about all that anyone can handle, if even that. There are deep inequities within our system, and this is highlighting even more the inequities that exist. I think that no one discounts the tremendous work that teachers, superintendents, principals, paras, I mean, you know, the list goes on. Anyone who is involved with the DOE in any way are working putting tremendous effort into trying to teach our kids, and they are succeeding in many ways. To add a level of stress is just too much for many for many families to be able to bear. So we put forward a resolution that says, like many universities around the country, many other school districts around the country, going to a binary would be an appropriate measure. Now, there are some people who think that should only be for a semester, only be, you know, for right now, because it discounts the work. We are not discounting any work that has been done or any grades. Basically, what we're saying is there is a situation at hand, and we need to address it and make every parent feel the most at ease as possible about what their kids are doing right now and the way that they're handling it. And we've gone point by point through the, you know, through all the many reasons why we think that this is tremendously important at this time. We don't think that this will mean that, you know, oh, school's out. That is not the point of this in any way. And we don't think that this parent what children will do. Children, parents, teachers, everyone are deeply invested and committed to having their children learn to the best of their possible ability. But what that ability is cannot be graded at this time. And it's very, very difficult to, and we've heard from teachers and principals and even Donalda saying that assessment from a remote situation is a very, very difficult thing to do at this time. I understand that there's like a year-end thing. Everyone knows what your grades are in March. We got them. everyone knows what the grades are now. There are many schools that also do a gradation system where you do an approach and then you meet by the end of the year. It's just, there's such a panoply of different ways that we do grading in this entire system. About this to just be a binary system for this year.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to ask, I have a little stopwatch here. I'm going to ask people, I didn't want to interrupt Emily, but she's a council member. I want to let her speak and introduce that resolution, but I'm going to ask people the best they can to keep, to try to keep it to 2 minutes, which is our usual length. Also, I will, since I'm a council member, let me lead by example in what I ask folks to do. I have 4 kids, 3 of whom are public school kids. My 2 middle schoolers go to the Salk School of Science in 6th grade and 8th grade, and my elementary school student is a 4th grader at PS 41. I would like, we should all just let folks know, because we sometimes have District 2 parents and non-District 2 members, because this is open to the public. Join us, let folks know if you know, the grade, meaning age, elementary, middle, or high school of your kid and where your child goes to school. And that's, so that was me sharing. There's a second resolution. Our resolution that I'm a co-sponsor of does not agree with binary grading, thinks that it's better to use what some folks have called the no harm approach, which lets children keep the grades that they've earned for the first 2/3 of the year and lets kids get an actual end of year grade. The no harm approach is hopes to recognize that everything Emily said is true about the fact that there's some very real hardships that are unique to this period of time. Of course, stress and anxiety is something that's with us at all times. For some families, it's extraordinarily increased, beyond the pale increased right now. And for some folks, this remote learning period is working. So the idea of no harm says, if it's working for you, if you can do your work, if you're succeeding, you have the opportunity to do that. If there is a reason why, and there are many reasons in some cases why the remote learning period doesn't allow you to do the sort of work that you would do normally, you would get to drop that grade completely and it wouldn't count. There are some links to some information that explains that more thoroughly. I do not want to take up any more time. I could say a lot more about it, but I won't, because I want to hear from some parents. Michelle, do you have a chat list started with folks who have asked to speak?
I do. So I will say I'm still scrolling through all the chats. I have 44 more chats to read, but I have like the first, 20 names. So I'm going to
read off the first 5 for me, or print them in the chat, and we'll start there.
So I'm going to put the list I have going in the chat. And because I could only type so fast, I just have the names and the people can mention their school and the grade.
No problem.
But I just posted in the chat to everyone the chat list. The first person is Chan Kwok. So I see you, Chan. I'm going to unmute you, and then you can give your public comment.
Hey, Chan, let's keep it to 2 minutes, okay? And welcome.
Yes, hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you all very much. I guess really quickly, I think the first proposal of binary grades, you're talking about there's work that's been done 2/3 of the year. We should recognize that work. And we should even recognize work that's been done during this time. By having, not you, but by having the proposal, having a blanket generic grade, that dishonors the efforts. Both proposals honor and support the children. The second proposal with the grades protects the children and families by allowing them to drop the lowest grade. And that's the same thing what the first plan is doing. But we only apply it to the period that it's under crisis. All the work that's been done before and even now should be recognized and valued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Samara. Samara, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm Samara Dunn. My son is an 8th grader at Wagner Middle School. I agree exactly with what the previous parent said, that our children's grades, how hard they've worked this year, should not be discounted, and they should be counted towards, because I have a situation where my kid is going into high school, to a high school that we haven't been able to visit because of all this going on. And so we don't know if he's going to need to transfer. And if he does need to transfer, we need those grades so that he can get into another school. So that's my 2 cents. And I think that the binary system should not go at all.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have our third speaker. Thank you.
Jane is next. Okay. All right, so Jane Burke, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay, good. Hi, I'm Jane Burke, and my daughter is a 7th grader at Salk School of Science. Obviously, 7th grade is a very difficult year, a very important year for kids. But that being said, I think that aside from that, the big picture is that these kids have worked so hard all throughout the year, and especially now in isolation, in very unusual circumstances, to keep up their grades. I find the binary system to be so dispiriting, so uninspiring, so devaluating, and a terrible life lesson. The lesson our kids are learning is that you put forth your best effort no matter what's going on, and you survive. I think that this one-size-fits-all approach does such a disservice to all children, What happens if you have kids who have difficult circumstances, but they're somehow managing to survive? I would like to see something where individual schools, teachers can, single out certain students who, are under these extraordinary circumstances and take that into consideration. But I am not for the binary system, and I think the do no harm proposal is the way to go. This is really, really shocking and highly upsetting.
Okay. So Maggie, oh goodness, I'm gonna mispronounce it. Maggie Furtado, you're next. So I'm gonna find you and unmute you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm not a parent. I am a teacher, and I came to this specifically because I feel very strongly about the no harm approach. It absolutely should be the way to go. I looked at the grades that I have for my 2 classes. I teach 7th grade math, and my classes had 93 and 95 averages overall in the first trimester. They had 97 and 91 the second trimester, and some of the kids are having a difficult time making the adjustment. I don't have any problem with discounting that 3rd trimester and then just taking the average of the first 2 trimesters if that benefits them. But all of the work that they have done, I have a lot of kids that will be very, very disappointed if they don't get the grades that they earned, because they're going to get an S. An S doesn't mean much. There's a great deal of difference between a 65S and a 99S. And then they're going to be concerned with their high school. How are they going to get into high school? They're going to have all S's. And if they're not going to a specialized high school, that's going to be a problem to differentiate the students in the selection process. So I feel very strongly that we should have the no harm approach.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear from teachers.
That's why I came.
All right. Next, we have an MS 104 parent.
Kelly.
Yes, Kelly, you're unmuted.
Hi, how are you? Well, basically, I'm on board with anything that works to the benefit of the student. My son was struggling since this quarantine, where I've been able to, kind of monitor him and be a resource for support. So he's a senior. He got accepted to his choice high school. I am concerned that his previous grades, which did not mirror his capacity and his abilities, which he's now flourishing. So I am a neophyte to all of the verbiage and resolutions, but I think anything that could personalize an individual student along with what they previously received as a grade, as well as their efforts now, and a personalized mention from their teachers as far as the strides they've made, That's what it would take, some individualization for each student, which is a lot of work for teachers, but the students deserve it. The parents deserve that for their children. So it has to be personalized for each and every student as best that can be, you know, because there is a merit for both of the resolutions, but first and foremost, the child should be able to have their efforts shine, as well as their grades. So, I'm just glad that I'm able to be part of this forum, and I hope that things do work out for the benefit of all of our students.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm looking for both previous grades, but more importantly, to recognize the strides he's made up till now.
Yeah. Yep.
That's possible.
Okay. So that's pretty much it, and we'll just say our prayers.
All right, thank you. Lisa Tansey is next. You're unmuted.
Hi, I represent my son at Wagner Middle School, and we are also in support of the second resolution proposed by Maud. We are very concerned that this proposed resolution, the resolution that is proposed for the binary grading system, will disengage our children. My son is in 7th grade. He has worked so hard for his goal to not have to commute on a train to go to school. He thinks that he wants to go to Eleanor Roosevelt. And when I tell him his grades didn't matter for all of the work he did all this year, I can't imagine for him to get a satisfactory. He has put in so much effort to focus on his grades. And it's not only him, he and his friends during this pandemic time have collaborated and made sure that they've met every assignment. There are other parents who feel this way that I've spoken to, and we strongly believe that we are in support of Maud's resolution, and we hope that you consider that. We understand that other people have circumstances that are very difficult, and we are understanding of that, and we hope that the resolution that Maud proposed will balance those efforts and that the schools will be able to accommodate those children. But to dismiss the grades that our children have done before this pandemic is unconscionable.
All right, next we have Samantha. I think she dropped off. So move on to the next person. Unless Samantha Haywood, if you're still here, just privately message me. We have Kaushik Das up next. So I'm going to unmute you right now. You're unmuted.
Hi, Kaushik Das, actually. I'm co-chair of PS33 SLT. I see Emily shaking her head a lot. I guess, but the biggest concern I think parents have are especially parents of kids who are applying to middle schools and applying to high schools. And if you throw away their grades entirely, it absolutely is a backdoor randomization that I know Chancellor Carranza wants, but that many parents absolutely despise. And they would hate this. They would hate for this COVID case to have that be a backdoor solution to get what they want for the randomization. Because that is exactly what would happen if you make this entire year invalid. Now, that being said, I do agree with Emily on some points that there are different stresses on different families and is absolutely not uniform. We actually find ourselves somewhere in the middle. We have elderly parents, 4 of them in fact, that we're very concerned about. One of them in an assisted living place, one of them isolated Long Island, one of them isolated in California. I don't have nobody here that has COVID, but those are big stresses on top of I have business concerns. I'm applying for the federal PPP loan, the small business loan. These are all real life stresses that have, and we have some cash to deal with this, but there are other people who might be in similar or worse cases that actually need this money to survive. So I don't understand why there can't be some sort of hybrid approach where you make this semester pass-fail, maybe for parents who want it, maybe who don't. Maybe you take the better of solution. Maybe you don't have to decide uniformly and kick it to the schools, because principals and PTAs and SLTs want to weigh in on this, and this is their one chance to do it. That's also unfair. You couldn't even get all the people in this room to decide. I think the DOE could provide some guidelines and then kick it to the local schools, just like things are decided on a federal government and local level. It does not have to be a blanket policy for everyone.
Allowed to say something back?
Thank you. Hey, Emily, let's run through all the parents that are signed up first.
Okay, so I learned Samantha is here. Sorry about that. I'm unmuting you now. You can speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this meeting. It's wonderful that you were able to pull it together. I am a parent of a 7th grader at Wagner Middle School, and just like many other parents, he's been working like crazy this entire year. And I would love Maud Marin's approach of the no harm approach, because it's just, you know, so much, I don't know, I feel like it speaks more to some of the families that have been going through this difficult time. It still leaves a moment of grace, but it still reflects what we did all prior to March 12th. So that's kind of how I feel. My son has been doing very, very well remotely, actually, but you know, it's very difficult. The platform is insanely glitchy. I don't know if any of you have had this issue. He tends to be working till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Wagner has been very difficult with the grading system. We had a platform issue, and they're not recognizing that. That's a side note, but it's just increased. I'm sure a lot of people have had this issue as well. Couldn't be the only person. So there's, you know, problems, you know, just appear in many forms, and yeah. So thank you so much for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next we have William Doyle. William, you're unmuted.
Yes, hello. I'm not sure I understand the do no harm approach, but I do want to stress that I think that it is unconscionable for any grades to be assigned for the crisis period due to the severe inequities of equipment and stress that our students face every day. 16,000 New York City residents have died in the last 7 weeks. That's 10 Titanics of stress upon our children our children during the crisis period. My son Brendan would like to say a word.
As my dad was saying, there should be no grades whatsoever during the crisis period. As I see it, it should be more of a teacher advisory period where you do the work and your teachers help you grow on the certain subjects. Like, I'm a 6th grade student at MS 104. Let's say I can do geometry really well, but I can't do something else really well. My math teacher would say, hey, Brendan, maybe you could do a little more work on this field so you could get better at it, and then you could keep moving on. So and there are kids all over the city who have to like fight over a single phone in the house, who live in poverty, who can't do this. So I was thinking, well, I am a kid. I know what it's like to be in this pandemic, to be worried about not getting COVID, to be worried about having my family not getting COVID, and to be worried about not dying. So I feel like there should be no grades whatsoever. It should just be a growth period where the teacher says, okay, so work on this since you're already very good at this. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up we have Mike Pesca.
Well, that was very good, Brendan, and I would give you an A or an A minus, but of course I couldn't do that under a binary system, could I? The point is that I have enormous sympathy for everyone who has an IEP and can't get that addressed, who is a multilingual learner, who might have parents without resources. And I also want to note that the man we just heard from was the first one to support the binary system. And it does strike me that maybe those people who don't have internet access or parental resources to engage in distance learning would also not be able to show up in a meeting like this. And I'm just putting that out there to acknowledge them and to say I'm really sympathetic. But I think a key component that is missing from the plan is that we have this set of problems, but the solution does not address the problems. So Connor, your dad has to go out because he's a first responder or runs a grocery store, and you have 5 siblings and you don't have internet access. You know what we're going to do for you? We're going to give Marta, instead of a 97, we're going to give her a pass. That will help you, but it won't help him. And a lot of the population that we're talking about that is so impeded by distance learning, that's the very population that will get the non-mastery or fail designation. Again, that's not helping them. I want to, beyond supporting the no harm, even offer another idea. And this is something that some colleges are doing. I was reading in the Chronicle of Higher Education that Loyola is switched to a pass-fail, but they're giving students the choice of a letter grade. University of Wisconsin in Madison and Carnegie Mellon are letting them decide about a week for the letter grade. And the University of North Carolina, they show you their grade, and then you have a couple months to decide, do you want to take it as the actual grade, or do you want to take it as an M? Maybe you were impeded and could only get a 79 when without the impediments you could get an 89. So there are even more, I would say, more nuanced approaches than just the no harm approach if we could do it. And I didn't say that my son Milo is a 7th grader at Wagner. Thanks.
All right, Tom Lepre is next. Tom, you're unmuted.
Ah, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm Tom Lepre. I have a 7th grade son at the Salk School of Science. I agree with all the parents who've spoken in favor of the do no harm system. And I was wondering, when I came to this, if I was going to hear any persuasive argument in favor of tossing out the grades that students have accrued from the start of the school year through March. I heard Ms. Hellstrom say that it would reduce stress. I don't see what shutdown-related stress would be caused by counting pre-shutdown grades on report cards. I get the idea that remote learning has been tough for a lot of people and stressful, and so maybe it could make sense to throw out, post-shutdown grades for students who've had a hard time dealing with that transition. But I just can't imagine a sensible, non-opportunistic argument in favor of throwing out all grades, including pre-shutdown grades. I get it if you just don't agree with grades in general. And I get it if your goal is to destroy selective admissions and you want to use the pandemic as a way to turn selective middle school and high school admissions into a backdoor lottery system, as somebody mentioned already. I mean, I get why you would make that argument, but apart from opportunistic arguments like that, I can't even imagine what a sensible argument would be in favor of going toward a year-long grading system of satisfactory needs improvement. I haven't heard it so far. And again, I just support a do no harm system, which seems to make sense for the maximum number of people. That's it.
Great, thank you. Elka Samuels is next, so I'm going to unmute you. Just a housekeeping notice. So I received over 100 messages in the chat with a mix of people who wanted to speak and people who just made comments. I put an updated speaker list in the chat just now. If you wanted to speak, but you're not on that list, please message me separately and I'll add you. All right, Elka, you're unmuted.
Yes, hi. My name is Elka Samuel Smith. I am a co-president over at PS 51 on the SLT over there and also at the High School for Environmental Studies. And I've been a part of some, a lot of different meetings, a lot of individual conversations, and more importantly, conversations with people who don't have the ability to be on a call like this, or who don't have the ability to understand the resolutions that are being put out there because they don't have access. And I think that this is, in a very unfortunate situation. I know that it's think about the opportunity that we have right now. We have an opportunity to reimagine what is important to us as a community. And I hear people talking about grades, a lot about grades, but a lot of the conversations I'm having are about, food and about, figuring out how to pay a bill so they don't get, I just, the conversation or the neighbor's loss or the people that we already lost. So the things that what's important to us as a community, I think it's really important that whatever is decided on, and I don't think either resolution is perfect, honestly. I think that there's still a long way to go before there's a resolution that will actually seriously take everybody into consideration in the fairest of ways. And until that happens, I think that it's really hard to agree with either one of them, honestly, because there are going to be kids who are going to be hurt by either one. But I think the last thing that we should think about, or the people that should be kept in mind when everybody is voicing their opinions, are those people, are the ones that have been the most affected by this. How you would feel if you were in their place right now, talking about grading. Thank you.
All right, the next person we have is Mar Fitzgerald. Mar, you're unmuted.
Hi. Let's see. The question of grading during the current crisis isn't one of fair or unfair. It's a matter of what is right and what is wrong. Even under normal circumstances, traditional grading practices undermine equity by rewarding students with privilege and punishing those without. Resolution 138 calls it solution no harm. That's a lie. It only serves to widen this achievement gap and cause irreparable harm to many of our students. 73% of New York City public school students live in poverty. Many of them lack access to technology and/or internet, making remote learning at best a challenge, at worst impossible. It also ignores students at schools that rely exclusively on final marking period grades, particularly those in an admissions year. How can we ensure accuracy in grading while ignoring that, or the fact that the student performance is so heavily influenced by environment and resources? I am in support of Resolution 137. It takes into consideration the disproportionate effect this crisis has on those students without supports that contribute to success. And that is the only right thing to do. I'm done.
All right, next person on our list is Caitlin Fouche. All right, you are unmuted, Caitlin.
Thank you. I'm the vice president of PS 130's Parent Association, which is a Title I school, representing a lot of gap in income inequality here. And I'm receiving many, many messages right now from our parents in support of Maud's plan, from parents saying, we've come from low income, no access to these devices, and we've managed to find a way. We want our grades counted, the work we put in. And we have found a way. The parent coordinators have worked diligently to make sure we've had access to the tablets or whatever devices we needed. And I just think it's an important representation from a Title I school to show that it's doable, the kids have worked hard, their grades should count.
All right, next up we have Evelyn Feldman.
Oh, yes, hi. I completely appreciate all the difficulties that a lot of children are having. I have a special needs child, so I completely understand. But as a lot of people have said, I think that Maud's proposal is the correct one, because our children have worked so hard throughout the year, and it's completely wrong to discount all that hard work. I honestly see no rationale. Again, I understand the difficulties, and I'm not discounting that at all, but I don't see why discounting prior grades makes up for all the inequities. And there are a lot of inequities, and I completely acknowledge that, but I don't see how discounting all the work the children did beforehand is a way for that. It's against the binary proposal.
All right, Naomi S. is next.
All right. Excuse me. So I have 4 kids at PS 41, including one with a 504 for disability. Obviously I want to acknowledge that it's a transition period for everybody. But this isn't the first transition period we've had during the school year. We've had teachers out on maternity leave, for example. Grading did not stop. And so my question is, if we haven't eliminated teaching, and our teachers and staff are working so hard, we haven't eliminated attendance, why would we eliminate grading? It's a three-prong wheel, and you can't just take out one prong of the wheel when we haven't eliminated anything else or lowered expectations for anything else. It just makes sense. My other is there's the assumption that grading is leading to the inequities or feeding into the inequities. But couldn't the same argument be made that if we take away grading, then we're actually taking away yet another metric of the inequities? And again, we're not holding the people who are responsible for making sure that these inequities don't exist, the people responsible for getting the technology out to the kids, the people responsible for everything that leads to these inequities, because these aren't the kids creating these inequities. These aren't most of us creating these inequities. Most of us don't want the inequities. I guess we just disagree on how to get there. And my question is, why would we let the people who are failing and contributing to the inequities get away with one less metric to hold them accountable by?
All right, sorry, bear with me as I try to see who's next on our list. All right, Sudha R, you are next. I'm going to unmute you. And I don't see that person in, so we'll move on. Elaine, you are next. Okay, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Just a couple of quick things. I have one 7th grader in the public system, and I have one 10th grader in the private system. So I've looked, I'm aware of how both, and I'm English. So this is like my third education system, if you like. I just want to say there's two things. I think the point that the 6th grade boy made before was a very valid one, that this is, for some people, this is a time for students to actually learn things and maybe have more support with things that they can't necessarily have in the classroom environment. But the main point I wanted to make was that we're in a very different world, as we all know. And it's like, what are we going back to in September? I think somehow we're focusing on the wrong thing. And in some ways, we have to go back into society and how our kids are even going to go back into school. Hopefully by September, the doors will open and everyone will flood in, but that may not be the case. We might have to stagger even how kids go back. So I think the whole grading and not grading, and I agree that some kids have access to all sorts of technology and other kids have none. And I think maybe we're all getting a bit caught up in grading, and there's obviously more pressure on 7th graders. As I say, I have a 7th grader who's about to, you know, what happens to her with high school next year. So there's so many different moving parts to this that I think that the grading system is one thing we can sort of try and be a bit more relaxed about, and let's worry more about how our kids are learning in this new world and what the new world means. We might have to go back into it. And I think that might be a better approach to start with, and then figure out the grading system retrospectively once we figure out how we're going to learn in the future. Anyway, that's my point.
All right, next up we have Michelle.
I'll mute it now. You can go back.
Is your camera on?
No, I'm going to turn it off now.
Okay.
Hi, you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having this meeting. I'm very much in favor of the do no harm approach. I mean, I don't see any downside to it at all. I know that people are struggling. I'm unemployed right now. So a lot of difficulties for a lot of people, but to negate everything that our students have learned from the beginning of the year does not make any sense. And for those who don't have access to technology and Wi-Fi, this time does not have to count toward their grades. I have twin 7th graders at Wagner, so clearly high school is an issue for me, high school admission, but you do need to have a uniform grading system. I know someone had mentioned different colleges are doing different things, but especially for a high school admissions approach, you need to have a uniform grading system. And maybe neither one of these proposals is the best, but I think the do no harm is the fairest approach. Nobody is hurt by this approach. So if you don't have access and you're struggling now, then this does not have to count at all. But there is no reason why everything that happened from last September until March 13th should not count. Our students have been working so hard, and to take all that away when they know what's at stake, I just don't think it's fair to them and to the teachers and to everybody involved. And I think to take away the grading, really, I mean, clearly other people have alluded to this, pushes perhaps the mayor's and the chancellor's agenda to eliminate all of these factors anyway, but this is not the way to do to the no harm approach. That's exactly what it says, no harm. And I think everybody could benefit from it. There's some students who are performing better working from home. And so if you want to use those grades, then you can, and that only boosts your grades. It's some people, it's better for some people it's not, but the no harm approach benefits everybody. Thank you.
All right, Gary Negbar, you are unmuted.
Hi, I think the point I was going to make is has been made already about the no harm approach, that it isn't prejudicial to anyone. If you didn't do well during that the pandemic time, it doesn't count for your yearly score. My question though is, what do we do from here? It seems most of the voices are for the no harm approach, and so what is going on?
All right, next. Oh goodness.
I'll just speak to Gary. There is no specific procedure going forward. If there are updates, that our CEC will try to provide as much information on our website if there are any changes going forward with grades. That I have heard from the DOE folks. This is just a time to jump in. Because there hasn't been an official announcement, people from the DOE about the grade policy, although what you've read in the paper and what included in the resolution is what the DOE has shared with elected officials and a small number of CEC leaders. We were on a call on Saturday morning and they shared that proposal with us. But what they haven't heard a lot from is parents. So hearing from parents, I think, on this issue and at this time, which is a very unique time where all of these concerns that people are raising are very real, or any other time about any other education issue is appropriate and right. Parents should be able to, make their voice heard about what they want out of their kids' education. So there isn't an official next step, Gary, but there is, I would say, just the constant that parent voices get heard when they're loud and they speak up. Sorry,
and we will vote on the Maud. We will vote on the resolutions. Make that clear.
You know what, Ed, I'm not so sure because I don't have Robin Broshi in this meeting. Eric Goldberg and Tom Rockledge, who are 2 out of the 3 members who are trying to get in, seem to have joined the meeting. Tom has been active in our chat. I see Eric Goldberg here. I've texted Robin. I haven't heard from her. We could certainly call a meeting tomorrow morning to vote on this. I don't want, when I've had a council member trying to get into this meeting who can't, I don't feel comfortable going forward with that, but we as council members can discuss that at the end of the meeting. So let us move to our next parent.
Okay, our next parent is, oh goodness, she gave me the pronunciation, but it's so back in the chat now. I think it's Yordine. You are next. I'm going to unmute you. Sorry about the mispronunciation.
That's fine. It's okay.
And sorry, one other housekeeping note. I'm trying to do the chat and all the technical things. If you're a council member and you want to speak, please let me know and I will unmute you. And if I don't see it, just send it to me again and I'll make sure you're unmuted.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Geraldine Durandis. I have a 7th grader at M255 Salk School of Science. We're actually new this year to the school. And I am actually in favor of the no harm grading proposed because, I honestly just think that going with a binary approach disrupts what bit of normalcy our students still know and have during this difficult time. And I don't think that it would encourage the kind of learning that must continue to consistently engage, motivate, and sustain this new remote learning model. I think it's the most fair and flexible approach for grading for all students that will still allow for that familiar level of expectations from our students of school now, and then that continued level of normalcy during this time of adjusting and transition. And, I do want to say that, being, my daughter goes to school in District 2, but we live in District 1. And, so being a parent of a child who I would say represents the underserved part of the community, who attends a school where the demographic doesn't necessarily reflect our experience, I wholeheartedly acknowledge and fully understand the disparities that exist within many communities across New York City, especially in the public school system. But I also understand and recognize that the DOE itself has been one of the key institutions that have played a fundamental role in creating those disparities that cause parents like me that have to fight and advocate to get their kids into schools like Salk or Wagner, where that can best support their academic needs and abilities so that they don't fall through the cracks or get left behind in an already deficient system. I think that I don't think that this is the time or the way that DOE should address its lack of sound and ethical judgment and how it's designed the public school system or allocated its resources or prepared its teachers for this. I think that that's a much bigger undertaking and a more long-term effort, sustainable and fair across the board, especially during this time. And we're in April. There are literally about 8 weeks left of school, not including scheduled days off. I think that this change in the grading policy at this point would be more of a disruption and a hindrance during the transition process. And it would adversely impact future opportunities for my student. And that's just, one thing that I did want to put out there, because there are people who don't have the access to access these meetings and everything like that. But this is the time that parents need to seek out those resources and be the best advocate that they can for their school, for their child, because because I think that the same consideration that's being extended to the high school students should be extended to at least middle school level, if that the do no harm approach offers the best chance. And I've spoken to my 7th grader and she was really upset, like, what, all of the work that I did, like, that would suck. What about these programs that I'm applying for the summer? Like, what am I gonna do? So that's why I came on this call today, because, it's not just about, those folks who are just concerned about grades and achievement. It's really about those folks who really have to fight and advocate to get those kids into the schools that can better support their children so that they can have those future opportunities that some kids don't get. And thank you guys all for, coming on here. It's an attestament that you guys are all, vested in your child's future. And, I think that if we're able to work together, I think that, we can get like a great outcome. So keep sending those emails, keep, advocating, keep having these meetings. But thank you guys for having this meeting, and thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Geraldine.
All right, next we have Josephine Ishman. I just wanted to make note that Robin is now able to join. So Robin, glad you can join. If you want to be unmuted, just let me know and I'll unmute you. For now, I'm going to unmute Josephine. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm a District 2 parent, but I'm going to try to widen the net here a little bit and talk about all of our children in this district. So we have a little more inclusivity here. I'm speaking on behalf of students in temporary housing. Their families have been disproportionately impacted by COVID and remote learning. I've spoken to several student temporary housing coordinators about their challenges. And Reso 138 doesn't account for students in temporary housing who often switch schools at the beginning of the year, missing valuable instruction and rely on end-of-year scores to raise their overall grades. And many of these children are living in hotels and are sharing one room with multiple family members and have been given no alternative space by the DOE, a quiet space to actually work. They've lost the extra academic support and emotional support needed to successfully complete their daily assignments. Students in temporary housing are also clustered in a few District 2 schools that unfairly impacts the overall grading scores for those schools. And I just want to remind everyone that, you know, all kids are valued in this community, and students in temporary housing are just as valuable as all of our children, and they should be included in this decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine.
All right. Tom just asked that I unmute him. Tom, you're unmuted.
May I speak? Can you hear me?
Hey, Tom, any chance you can hold it? What I'd like to do is get through a few more parents at this point. I don't know if you're going to be able to stay with us. Ushma had to leave and is coming back, I believe.
Okay, I just wanted to address Josephine's point very quickly,
Hey,
if I may.
But Tom, I'm not giving all the other council members an opportunity to address.
Okay, I didn't know. I wasn't on for an hour. I apologize.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
and I'm very sorry about that. But let's just, we started at 4:30. We were supposed to start at 4. We started at 4:30. Let's go through to 5:30. One of the participants in the chat, I believe it was Kirk, had a suggestion, which I thought was a good one, about whether or not we can do a poll of the folks that were on, because we seem to be a little bit lopsided right now in terms of what folks are supporting. I don't think right now, because Michelle is our host,
I mean, I'm happy to switch over hosting powers, but I don't see an option to do a poll.
That's no problem. I'm just saying it was a good suggestion if you knew how to do it easily. But what I'd like to do is let's go to a few more parents right now. Okay. Michelle, can you tell me, I'm trying to find it in our chat.
Yes.
How many more parents do you have right now that are signed up?
I'm going to have to count, eyeballing it, I think of about 20, but Liz Manfield is next. Do you want me to unmute her?
Yes, and let me do this, guys. I really enjoy hearing from all of you. Let's go down to 60 seconds. Let's do it to a 1 minute, and I don't know if it works. I'll show you the time when we're close to 1 minute so that we can get everybody in. So let's call on our next parent.
Liz, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll be as quick as possible. I'm a SALC and lower lab parent. I'm also a high school teacher who's done public and independent school. So I feel like I have a pretty good, view across all these different angles of everything going on. I want to just respond for a moment. I've heard a lot of, in terms of advocacy for the inequities in the system and for the students, not advocacy for inequities, but for the students who have less, who are less fortunate, who are less privileged. I think we were like talking about two separate issues here. With regards to this actual proposal, I would like to hear a logical reason why we're talking about dismissing September through March. It's not changing anything that wasn't established before. Like, if the DOE cared so much about the students who are living in homeless shelters and everything like that, they would have definitely set up this no grade system for them starting in September. So I as a teacher now, many independent schools have moved to pass, fail, credit, no credit, some kind of platform. Fully support it. I don't think we can grade the students in high school appropriately and give assessments with integrity when so much cheating can occur. But I still would like to hear a lot regardless of kids' emotional attachment to the work they've done and the hard work they've put in. I understand all that. I'm still waiting for the argument that shows me why September through March should be completely wiped out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz.
All right, Samantha Roberts, you were next, but I don't see you in Zoom. So if you're still here, just message me. For now, I'm going to let DJ K go next. Okay. DJ K, you're unmuted. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think that the second resolution of the no harm is a much better option. It allows students to keep their grades that they've earned before all of this started, and it does not penalize them for the difficulties they may be experiencing with this new situation. That's all I have to say.
That was a record for brevity. That was
all right. Patricia Learia is next. You're unmuted.
Thank you. I find draft resolution 138 is reflecting a very narrow point of view. in paragraphs 14 through 20, you basically argued that the DOEs in the absences of state test scores and attendance, we rely on gradings in the last marking period. It wasn't too long ago that you invited Dr. Edward Fergus to talk about education policy and practices as it intersects the lives of populations living in vulnerable condition. That was February 2020, and he used D2 data. Again this month, you sent out a condolence letter acknowledging that we lost at least 50 Department of Education employees to COVID-19. We're in a pandemic right now. I'm happy that I'm here to participate in the Zoom virtual call, but again, no thought was given to include a phone link for Asian or Spanish-speaking parents to call in to hear a translation of what's being discussed. Again, Resolution 138 only proves to me that you are pushing through your agenda for a select few and not considering the majority of District 2. Remote learning is difficult for all students, particularly for those most vulnerable students. Your resolution doesn't even address the variables outside a student's control, such as the parent guardian availability for support, parent guardian's level of education, parent guardian physical and mental health, availability of technology, and other factors. Not all English language learners are receiving adequate services. Many of the students with IEPs are not receiving adequate mandated services or remote, in this remote learning situation. COVID-19 is stressing everybody to their mental health, to their limit. In a study that President Gail Burrow issued in 2017, there is a ratio of 1 social worker to every 800 students in Manhattan. There isn't enough to go around. So your resolution should be focused on helping our families and educators find a solution to these inequities that I've said so far. So New York City needs a system-wide guidance on grading to ensure students are treated equally. So I'm supporting Resolution 137. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Benjamin. Benjamin Summer, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Andrea Summer. My son, Benjamin, is a 7th grader at ESMS. I've been a teacher as well for 26 years. I agree wholeheartedly with what Liz said earlier. I teach, and actually I teach at a private school. And the only reason I mention is that because we've been debating grades, what to do with grades for this semester, and we've gone to a no harm policy. I'd like to suggest that in the no harm policy, first of all, I don't think 6 months of grades should be just eliminated. As many have stated before, I don't need to reiterate, they've worked hard, they feel deflated by just even the thought that it would not be counted. A no harm policy that addresses the fact and looks at their previous, whether it's a semester or a trimester, looks at it and says, okay, this was their average of those semesters for whatever it's a trimester or a semester, their grade cannot go down during this time. They are, as so many have said, been affected in so many ways, lost family members, parents who've lost jobs, all the inequities, and that policy should allow for, okay, let's look at what the previous work was and base it off of that. There are implications, I'll just say one last thing because my minute is up. His focus to get through all of this is to go along with what has been going along all year, is to work hard and to be a student. We often say that's his job, and his job is to be a student, and that's how he's getting through this pandemic, is to do his work, to work hard, and to be motivated. So I just don't think we should discredit 6 months of in-school work. Thank you very much for the time.
Lilibeth Feliciano, you're unmuted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lilibeth Feliciano. I am a PS51 parent. I have twin girls that are 8 years old, and I'm co-president of the PTA as well. you're comfortable with either resolution, I just want to bring some things to the foresight. I have personally been affected by COVID. I've lost a family member. I have somebody in a coma on a ventilator, someone else struggling to be off a ventilator. 10 members of my family have COVID. So the fact that I haven't been able to be present during my child's education just for the last month alone is tasking. And then having to kind of navigate through such a crucial decision that's being made without, I feel, input of PTA, SLTs, and conversations with parents with just this platform, which I'm grateful for that we are having, to me, it doesn't make sense. But I just want to account for one thing. Hard work, we keep talking hard work all year. Hard work can be defined for every kid differently. There's the hard work that, yes, the kids have worked so hard and they get good grades and they'd be deflated. And there's also the hard work from that child that works hard all week, all year with the support of administration, teachers, the routine, having food every day at school and having some stability that now that has drastically changed in a matter of minutes and they no longer have that. So I think in both, there's kids that are gonna lose. It's just inevitable. I think there has to be real conversations on what this means. I'm not sure that we can come up with an answer, but you know, I'm not in favor of either one, but that's just my input.
Thank you, Lilibeth, and I'm very sorry to hear about all of those difficulties. I'm going to take this moment, since this seems like a good moment, to say I'm going to propose that we why don't we do 10 more minutes of public comments. Let's see if folks can keep it down to 60 seconds. I hate to cut people off. So and then I'll move it on to council members if they want to discuss the resolutions. I will stay. If anybody wants to say anything after council members speak, I'd be happy to hear from anybody, but I know that people are mindful of time. We'll get into the dinner hour. So what I'm going to suggest is we do 10 more minutes of public comments. If you think folks have already really said what you have to say, I know everybody likes to speak. See if you can let someone who maybe hasn't said something new jump in, and we'll go back to the chat list. And then in about 10 minutes, I have Robin Broshi here for those of you who are following which council members get in. We now have all our council members in, although I think Ushma was coming back at 5:30. So we have our folks here to have the debate about the resolutions that we put forth. We can have council member conversations after the next 10 minutes of parent public comment. Okay, let's do that. Who is our next speaker?
All right, so next, thank you, Rachel Gerstein, for giving up your spot. Next is Mara Seltzer.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My concerns are, I have a 7th grader, currently has been working extremely hard all year, and I feel that no resolution is making any plans for how high school admissions are going to be, decided when no grades would be used whatsoever. I still have not heard an argument as to why.
Invisibility.
Hello?
To get an energy drink. What a
Hello?
bro.
We're here, Mara. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm hearing background noise. I don't hear any reason why we should eliminate the grades up until March 13th or 15th, whatever it was when we went into remote learning. And I feel like this resolution to eliminate all grades the entire year is just pursuing de Blasio and Carranza's agenda to eliminate all screening, which they started in District 15. And it really does not make any sense to do this at this point without, and I'm hearing most of the parents on this line are in agreement with me that there should not be an elimination of the grades. I also don't understand why there's no excellent. If we're gonna go to the system of N and S, why should there be no excellent? That means everybody is the same when some kids have tried more than others and received higher grades than others throughout the year. I would like to also ask that the council members have access to the chat, where many, many parents have expressed similar comments to what I'm saying now. And that's really what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Okay. All right, next up we have Ara Menzi. You are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having this meeting. I guess just one thing I haven't heard that I was curious about, a clarification on the no harm. If I'm understanding it correctly, that no student grades would go down, but student grades could go up. And I'm wondering if that advantages already privileged students who, you know, I hear a lot of parents talking about how hard their kids are working. Hard work doesn't always translate into good grades. My kids work hard. They have IEPs. All of their services have basically been taken away. And also I should say, I have a 5th grader at Midtown West, BS 212, and a 10th grader at School of the Future. And I'm wondering, so for parents who are able to be there and help, or I know parents who have other classes, other things, and their students can continue to do well or even do better than they were doing before, if their grades go up, then all of the students who don't have access to those types of extras, or parents who are around, or housing, or don't have ill family members, then it's sort of de facto, those other grades are kind of going down. So, you know, we're talking about the no harm model. If you're not in a position to have your grades go up, then I think there is possibly a little bit of harm there. And also, you know, my goal right now is to get my kids through this psychologically. I don't really care about their grades, to be quite frank. And if parents are in a situation where they're able to educate their children, continue with this, it's going well, that's wonderful. Isn't that the goal? And not so much on admissions.
Ara, thank you. I'm gonna take 2 more public comments, and then we're gonna go to council member discussion for a vote.
Thank you, Maud.
Thank you.
All right, Robert McGraw is next. You're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. I'm a parent of a son that's in 4th grade at PS 41 with an IEP. I do have empathy for other families that are also requiring extra support with an IEP. But overall, I think the program around distance learning is going well. I think we're fortunate for the most part across community board too, that we have a very engaged parent body that is supporting the teachers and helping our children learn as well as possible. I think the do no harm proposal makes the most sense of what I've heard so far. And the only thing I would really ask for in terms of advocacy from this group moving forward is that we really get further clarity around the admissions policies and practices for middle school and high school, so that we have a very clear understanding as to how we continue to incentivize our children to put forward academic excellence in this period, and that we don't end up with a dilution of the criteria for how we reward those kids that are best positioned to go into the middle schools and high schools and the admission practices that exist right now. We know that they're going to have to change it with the elimination of grades coming with Common Core. We know that with the elimination of attendance and other factors, but we have to have some basic way of keeping some integrity around how kids who are doing well can continue to get the appropriate allocation of slots into these schools.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Can we get our last speaker, Michelle, for now? Like I said, I'll stick around.
Tammy M is next. Tammy, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you very much. And I started my own timer, so I know I'll be a minute. Thank you, Maud, for your patience. I am a parent of a high schooler at Baruch College Campus High School, and I have twins who are in 6th grade at PSIS 276, one with a 504. I will say that I'm in support of the no harm simply because all kids worked from September to March, and having that discounted is extremely unmotivating moving forward. There are also in the high school system, there are many, many schools that have some aspect of online remote learning incorporated into their regular program. So it has not been as high of a leap at some schools than others. And there are schools that are doing very, very well with it. So I understand the push from different sides to try and make it easier, but this is not a way that we can solve inequity. Binary will do nothing but dismotivate and unmotivate an entire swath of kids above and beyond where we are now, because it will send the message that the work that they've done thus far was not needed to be. That is my timer going off for you,
I'm
Mom.
very impressed, Tammy. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I should say I'm also the co-president of the PTA at PSIS 276. And we firmly believe in retaining the grades through the second marking period, and where you could go up, but you can't go back down. It shouldn't be harmed, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there to speak, I'll hang out, and any and all council members are welcome to hang out to hear additional comments. Right now, I would like to go to some council members. I would also like to ask Robin Broshi, who is our council member who joined us the latest, and who I actually tried to introduce first to speak at this meeting because she was the one who had requested this special meeting. So Robin, I see you on our...
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute you, Robin, but there you go.
I'm good. Maud, what did you have in mind exactly?
Oh, I had, when in the very beginning of the meeting, I had mentioned that you had requested this special meeting, and you were one of the co-authors of the what folks have been referring to conveniently as 137, because our two resolutions are both about grading. So if you wanted to speak about why you wanted to call the special meeting, why you wanted to have the resolution, you could kick our
Okay. I'm going to be honest with everyone. I found the logging in experience really threw me off my game, because I was just getting inundated with well-meaning texts and emails from people that were very frustrated that they couldn't get in, and also that were concerned that council members couldn't get in. So I hope everyone is patient with me if I sound, and just my own biochemistry, once that adrenaline starts flowing, it takes a while to subside. So I hope everyone is patient, and the little quiver in my voice doesn't discount whatever else comes out after right now. So I guess the reason that I requested the meeting was because I did feel that it was a time-sensitive issue. I had the sense that the DOE wasn't properly getting input from families, and I wanted an opportunity for District 2 families to be able to participate in this conversation. Frankly, I was very disappointed that although the final draft of Resolution 137 was ready to go mid last week, that it wasn't shared with the rest of the district, that it didn't go out to this morning. I wish it had been able to been shared when it was available, when the meeting notice originally went out. That being said, I think that we ask a lot of, so the reason why I thought the binary was the model that at the time when I wrote it made the most sense was that I think we ask a lot from grades. The grades give feedback to parents about how students are doing. They give feedback to teachers about how they're doing. Principals and administrators and regulators. It helps everyone see where kids need additional scaffolds and where they need additional challenges. Mid-year grades can reflect the work that's done in a unit, but I've had, my child's gotten mid-year grades that reflect work towards a year-end benchmark, so that you can't get a good grade in the middle of the year, because the goal is that you increase through the course of the year, and that the work isn't necessarily it captures the moment in time, but what is it benchmarking against? So that was another concern I had about some of the other models being offered. And obviously we're hearing that for some families, grades are a reward for hard work. They're seen as an incentive to do well in school. And there's traditional grades that we get are nuanced, right? It's designed so that it's a way to create an individual, as well as possible, that can be captured in just maybe 5 letters, an individual experience or an individual information that could be captured in a way that a narrative can't capture. But so it made sense in formulating this resolution and with the people that I worked with, that, you know, well, I should say for myself, I think, and a question a lot of people have asked, like, why aren't we always having this conversation? Why now? And actually, like, I wondered that too. And I felt foolish that I hadn't really thought about all those things before. And it took a pandemic moment for me to start thinking about how equitable grades are in general. But meanwhile, here we are having this conversation in this extraordinary moment. And I think right now, when there's so much variation in the teaching and learning experience for each child, much more so that happens in a traditional classroom, so much more variation in how much a parent might be supporting the work at home, or teachers aware of how much work the parents might be supplementing, or tutors. And when there's so many high stakes factors influencing our students' lives and our educators' lives, that it made sense to transition away from that the value of a nuanced grading system gets decreased when there's so much additional inconsistency in the lives of our students and our teachers. Our superintendent shared a really lovely video earlier today about what school is like now. School isn't canceled. School is still happening. It's just different. And I don't think she was sending secret messages, but there was a line in that video that said, the kind of school we have right now isn't the same as before. It's designed a higher. I think it's so important in this moment. You know, I always say to my kids when they bring me a bad grade, why did that happen? Are you not grasping the information? Do we need extra help from your teacher? Or was there something that you just didn't apply yourself very well? And I think that we have to pick our priorities. What are we trying to get from grades right now? And I think those priorities need to be about understanding how our students are engaging with the work and if they're grasping it, and emphasize to them that right now their emotional health is our priority. And so that's a little bit of my editorializing, a little bit of background about my version of, or the version of the resolution put forward by myself and its 3 other co-sponsors. And I'm going to let all my other council members speak to their beliefs and the comments that from the public that they were able to hear, which unfortunately I missed a majority of.
Thank you, Robin. Let's go to Tom, because I know Tom wanted to speak earlier. So Tom, if you have anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll go to
First off,
the other council members.
Sure. Thank you. First off, Josephine, I'm trying to work with members to take care of students in temporary housing right now. It's a very important issue to us. I'm working with Chino and Ushma. And if you have any suggestions on how to get these lists from the shelters, please let me know. We have a parent working on it, Jocelyn, but these families need supplies desperately. And I just need lists. I could pass those lists off to people who can purchase every item on that list. But other than that, I would like to thank our superintendent, Donalda Chumney, for showing leadership during this difficult time. Leadership that is lacking at the top right now, especially the mayor and the chancellor. Second, I would like to point out that I support Maud's resolution, but final grades are really not the issue right now. I'd like to propose that students do not return to regular school sessions before they are given a diagnostic to measure where they are in their education path. The diagnostic will enable teachers to deliver the appropriate resources to each individual student. It should be prohibited from being used for admissions process. We need to face the reality that we do not really know what students are actually doing right now. We do not know whether their parents are helping them or even if the parents are doing all of the work for them. We need to acknowledge the equity gap is widening right now. Students need to get the education they deserve, no matter their living situation. We have kids in situations so bad that many of us in our district can't even imagine, including myself. They're confined to small spaces or in temporary housing and have parents who are struggling and dealing with serious issues. Placing students in classrooms where they will struggle to keep pace with other students is not beneficial for anyone. A diagnostic test can make sure that we are serving the needs of those students. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And now I'd like to just open it up to any of our other council members. Let's hear from folks we haven't heard from yet. If anyone wants to comment with regard to something that they heard from a parent, or say something about the resolutions. You can, go ahead.
So this is Vincent. I have a child. Yes, I have a child in 8th grade now at Lab Middle School. I don't know if we're still doing that, but anyway.
Yeah.
Couple of things. I heard from one parent that they thought that retaining the grades that had already been earned was punitive to all students, and that was a viewpoint I didn't understand or see before I talked to this parent, but it's certainly a viewpoint. The other thing I wanted to point out, this is about remote learning. For some reason unknown to me, we had a device delivered to our household that we never requested. And so given all the discussion about lack of equipment and inequity, we're really perplexed at why a device was delivered to our household. And so I'd like to figure out how to get that returned and put somewhere where it could be put to use. And just wondering, like the system that was set up to assess needs and deliver product, there's something wrong if that could happen and we get something we don't need.
I think that's the tip of the iceberg of things that could have gone better with device delivery right now. But thank you for the for that flagging that concern. Vincent, I'll let you finish up if there's something else.
No, just that obviously I'm listed as a co-sponsor on the no harm approach. So that's the one question I got from that same parent was, well, if you support that, could you also support the other resolution? And they are the same in many respects up until the last part of each, where they suggest what the approach should be. So I'm a supporter of the no harm approach. As many parents said, it's not perfect, but under the circumstances, it's the least adverse to me.
Thank you, Vincent. Do we have any other council members who want to speak?
I see Emily's hand is up.
Oh, go Len first.
Oh yeah, thanks, Emily. I'm just going to chime in. You know, one thing that I've always felt is very important is that the parents, and I'm glad so many people have showed up on this conference, really have an opportunity to have their voices heard, and that's something I've tried to bring up on CPAC and meetings with the chancellor. I just want to express the fact that I don't know how many people tried to get on to this forum. I know we had some difficulties. I know Maud has tried her best. I know Michelle's tried her best in terms of the number of people on, but I have received a ton of emails, and I've spoken to students as well. I know we had one student talk that are completely in favor of the no harm policy. And I recognize that you have a second grader, and getting that second grader to do anything is exceptionally difficult under these circumstances. But I do feel that when you have older kids, when you have certainly high school students, when you have middle kids that are in middle school, they're certainly capable of performing a certain level of work. And I just want to add that, again, as has been mentioned before, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I really haven't heard any compelling arguments as to why you're going to discount what has occurred up to March 15th. I just really haven't heard that. And you do need to incentivize. I think this is part, and I think many people on here recognize, and I recognize the people who have been for the binary proposal. I recognize the people who have been for the no harm proposal. We tend to fall into the same camps that you see, the same speakers. And this is about a larger debate that I don't think we're really prepared to address here today, about whether it's privilege, about whether it's changing the system. But the reality is that this is about, this is being framed as an argument, I think, to do whether you like screens, whether you want to get rid of change admissions in District 2. And I think that we really need to just focus on whether or not you're going to count those grades that have taken place up to this point, whether you're going to incentivize students, and you're not harming people in counting the grades, certainly up to March 15th and March 13th, whatever the date is. And that's why I'm proud to support the no harm proposal. And I think that's the best proposal under these circumstances. And I can tell you that as a member of CPAC, we keep on hearing from the chancellor that there's going to be focus groups going on. This is a group where we really do have an opportunity to speak up, and I'm proud to hear for both perspectives that what our district parents feel and how our district parents view this. And I do think there's an overwhelming majority that do support having grades counted, having the no harm proposal. So just want to mention that. And I've heard again from those parents behind the scenes and through emails and over the telephone.
Thank you, Lynn. So one last time before we go to Emily, are there any council members who'd like to speak who haven't spoken yet?
Yeah, I want to speak as well, Maude, but I'll wait till after Emily. Okay. This is Eric.
So just very quickly, I think there are two sort of themes that keep sort of recurring. First of all, I feel like it's very unfortunate to call a resolution a no harm policy when there are harms. And it reminds me very greatly of a bill that came out that was called the Clear, and it felt as though it was really easy. You wanted clear skies. I want to support this without thinking about what is actually at hand. And there has been a very clear and concise and logical point of view where there is actually harm. If you, there are several instances where there can be actually great harm, both under the stresses of trying to grade, under the proposal that if you have a higher grade because you have the ability to access online tutors during remote learning, then your grade can go up, and whereas others cannot go up. No one is saying that you should throw out the grades. Those grades stand. The grades that we have gotten in November and March, they are there. They're not erased. Your children can be proud of those grades, and they have them. They are real and they exist. What people are saying is, let's have a policy that is the most fair to the people who have been most impacted by this horrific situation. It should not take away the motivation from your children. It should not take away any effort your children are doing, because the fact is that effort is rewarded. It is rewarded by learning. And I agree with Tom 100%, especially for, I chair the Students with Disabilities Committee, and I hear from people every day, all the time, about how their children are impacted by this situation where literally they cannot even access the information because they either cannot focus with ADHD, or they have dyslexia, or they have anxiety. They cannot even get at the information. So I'm not saying throw out any grades. I'm just saying the proposal that stands is about pass fail or binary system. I wouldn't even say pass fail. Universities are doing it. Other other systems are doing it. So that's all I would like to say.
Okay, Eric, let's go to you. Thank you, Emily.
Sure. And again, thanks to everyone for joining today and sharing their thoughts. Two of the reflections that I've had after listening to the group is, really in this time as we're facing this pandemic and students are struggling across the spectrum to learn, to access education, it's that here in District 2, we continue to have this intense focus on labeling, sorting, and assessing students. And I really wish that we would take this opportunity to focus on learning. And I think that's one of the pieces that we're really missing as a community, is this is the time to focus on learning and understanding what our children will be missing out on for these 3 months outside of school and potentially more. So that's the first point, is that this emphasis and fixation on grading really strict to why this is the focus, as opposed to spending our time thinking about learning today and how we get ready for our students to return to school in September after having experienced remote learning. Instead, we're here fighting and battling about how we label and assess students. So I think that's first and foremost. Second piece is, just when we think about grading, if we're going to spend some time on that, I'd like everyone to really understand that right now, schools grade students differently. We have no standardized process in place. Grades vary across schools and really within schools and the way that they approach it. And I hope that when we think that we have a good way to compare students across schools, we really don't. So I think we should spend some time on that piece as well. And sort of lurking beneath the surface of this whole conversation is a focus on admissions. And I do think that we should all be really aware that whether we put forth final grades or not, it's going to have almost no impact on admissions, because the truth of the matter is, in District 2, most students in elementary school will get a 4, right? And many students in 7th grade have super high grades. So if you're looking at maintaining grades as a way to retain screening, that's really not going to be effective. So I just want to clarify again that we don't need to mix up screening and grading right now, because without testing and without attendance, there's really not going to be much to differentiate students on. And we're probably going to have to come to terms with the idea that we can educate all our students. I do want to address very quickly this idea of grades from September through March, and what we see is some, or at least what I see as some of the downsides, and looking at that, at those grades as a proxy for end of the year grades. There's really 3 things. First is, many schools look at standards-based grading or mastery grading, where they're not going to give a student a grade on how they're approaching standards, but how they are actually meeting standards that would be expected at the end of the year. So there'll be some schools in the district that grade one way and others that grade another. And unless we're willing to go through and normalize those grades at those schools, all those students will be harmed. Second is that we're having this belief that student progress and achievement is linear, that as I am learning in January, February, March, I'm going to continue on that same path in April, May, and June. And I think we all understand that students sometimes get a concept, they buckle down, or for whatever reason, there is a different type of change that happens in the 4th quarter. And lastly, something we've spent a lot of time on this council around is that we don't like to change expectations midway through. And every student came into this year thinking that their final grade would be based on a full year of academics. And if we're just going to cut it off in the middle and say that we're going to use it as a final grade, we're changing expectations for students. So I think those are 3 important things to think about as we evaluate these resolutions. Is first and foremost is our focus on learning as opposed to grading. Second is really that the schools currently today don't have in place a real clear way to compare students, and that this won't impact admissions. And third is just trying to grasp and hold on to some way to label students, I don't think is very helpful. So for me, I think the best way to proceed is not to think about grades for this year, because there's really no equitable way to do it. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to Ushma next, and then after Ushma speaks, I'm going to speak, and then if no one else has a comment, we will move to a vote. And we will certainly hear from any other parents who want to speak.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for staying on for this long. It's been extremely clear to see how passionate all of our parent community has been about this, given just how many of you wanted to have your voices heard. And I'm a sponsor of the binary resolution 137, and I have been being household. I hear you, and the point for all of us as counselors is to be responsive to what the community wants. I think Tom made the point earlier that to a certain extent this can be extremely frustrating because it seems like the DOE has actually already made up their mind about everything and moving forward. But I just wanted to add in 2 cents about why I thought that this was important and the conversations that we've been having in our house. I have a 5th grader at PS 41, a 6th and an 8th grader at Simon Baruch Middle School. And they are exposed to different levels of privilege and different ethnicities in terms of their classes. And I've been one of the people who, together with Shino Tanakawa, Jocelyn Anker, now Tom Rockledge and Josephine Ishman, among a number of others, who've been working towards trying to get supplies of toiletries and school supplies to students. And how just in District 2, there are 1,700 kids living in hotel rooms and shelters, and it prompts a lot of questions about privilege and what my kids are able to do here with 3 different computers and what they're allowed to do there. I know that my comments are probably not going to sway anybody else's. I have heard the rest of you and what you're saying, and I know the inevitability here. I continue to think that a pass-fail grade will allow for a leveling of the playing field in a way that other proposals don't. So I appreciate the opportunity to say something, and I've seen about 40 chats fly by. For those of you who thought that we couldn't see them, all council members have been able to see the chats.
Okay, great. We are going to move to a vote. I wanted to say a few things in direct response to some things that folks have said. Patricia Larrea, you brought up the fact that we should try to figure out how to have a phone line for additional languages when we do Zoom meetings. I agree with you 100%. Figuring out how to upgrade from 100 people to 300 people on Zoom on the fly wasn't all that easy, and I wish I was more technological savvy so that we could make sure we're able to include as many people as possible. Thank you to Jocelyn Anker, who got Instagram Live going also on the fly. I'm very impressed by that. And I think we have been trying to resolve our Facebook page sign-in issues, if you believe it or not, speaking of Luddite issues, so that we can perhaps live stream something like this over Facebook if we don't have enough stream. There are remote issues that are challenging for the people on this call. So obviously, the inequities that come about when people don't have access to devices during remote learning is a really, really serious issue. But I'll just say that something that I hear that perplexes me again and again is when people talk about inequities as if they didn't exist pre-COVID-19, as if in some households you don't have a parent who's a PhD in applied mathematics or a parent who's who hasn't graduated from high school. The ability of parents to help kids do homework has got to be one of the biggest drivers of school success for kids, and that enormous inequity existed beforehand, exists now, and can't be changed. We are actually attempting to now, as a Department of Education, remedy one of the greatest inequities we have, which is some kids who don't have access to a device. I happen to agree with Councilmember Ben Kalos, who said we should have gotten all of our kids laptops that were cheaper than the iPads that we got them because kids need to type up papers. But we're trying, and I give the DOE a lot of credit for the effort to try to help bring all kids into the remote learning period. It's what we should be doing. I also want to echo something that Vincent Hom said. He said about these 2 resolutions, they're the same in many respects. And that is, I think, a sort of cruel irony of the loggerheads we find ourselves at, because we identify a lot of the same issues that we care about and concerned about. Every single member of this council has signed on to one resolution or the other that says we have to address this this extraordinary time that we live in by doing something extraordinary. No one says just keep it the same. That's not one of the things anybody's arguing for. We're all saying we have to come up with something different to acknowledge the kind of hardship that folks are living under. And I'll say that also Tom Rockledge mentioned something about diagnostics, and Eric Goldberg mentioned something about the variability in grades. Well, it is absolutely true that there's a lot of variability in grades, and it's also true that we need a diagnostic, but we need it before the start of next year. There's summer school for kids. There always has been, and the need for it will be even stronger now, and we need to have some diagnostics now so we can figure out who are the kids who most need the summer school so that we can help those kids the most be prepared to go back to school in the fall. All of those things do fall into the ideological battles that some of you have identified about whether or not we should have screen schools, whether or not we should have grades or tests. And the truth is, some of the things we just need in order to deliver services to our most vulnerable kids. So we do need diagnostics to figure out who are the kids who are most behind and need the most help. But we also need to figure out across the whole spectrum of kids where kids are at so that we can help those kids to learn when they get into their classrooms. And I'll just, you know, one point for the we can have grades, we can have grades, we can have grades. When we're having conversations about tests, like a specialized high school test, those same folks talk about how amazing grades are, and we should only use grades, and grades are the best indicators of success, and we should only ever use grades. And now we're being told that grades absolutely can't capture anything, and grades are not, we need to get rid of them for equity reasons. So I find some inconsistency in the arguments that frustrate me, because I think while there are a lot of people on here who have a lot of information, I listened to what Robin Broshi and Eric said about mastery grading and these different concepts. You know, at the end of the day, we need grades, we need tests, we need teachers to know what their kids are, what they're capable of, what they're learning, and how to instruct them. And then finally, I'll just say, and this is probably the most important thing, process here, how the parents readers. I think the reason we had so many parents trying to get into this meeting, and I wish I knew how to have 1,000-person Zoom, is because parents really, really care about this issue. And they care about knowing how their kids are doing, how to motivate their children, how to communicate with their school about their kids' abilities. That's important to parents. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that being important to parents. So I think the DOE needs to listen to parents, and they need to listen to parents as they formulate policies like this. So I deeply thank all of you for coming. I asked Vincent Hom if he's ready to take roll call, but I asked him so long ago in the chat that I don't know if he answered me or not.
Oh, I took everyone's name, so I counted all 11 of us are here.
Okay, fantastic.
Including
all right.
Ushma, who came back.
Okay, fantastic. We are at 278, so we haven't lost many of you. My hat's off to you for those of you who stayed here. I am going to move to a vote, and I am going to stay here if additional parents want to say anything. A few folks have said they want to know sort of what happens next. When we pass a resolution, we do send it on to elected officials, and we will do that in as timely a fashion as possible this time around, because this decision is being made shortly. So what I will do is ask Vincent to call the vote on resolution number 137.
Okay, so we're going to do the vote on 137. Are we doing it by member or just?
Yeah, I think unless anyone has a better suggestion, a roll call vote.
Okay, all right. So this is in no particular order, but Eric on 137.
Okay, let's go to our next member. We'll come back to Eric.
Okay, Ben Morden on 137.
Yes, I vote no on 137.
Okay, so that's a no. Okay.
Hey Vincent, sorry, I was trying to unmute to speak.
Oh, okay, yes. Eric. So you vote on 137.
So 137, yes.
Okay. Chino on 137.
Yes.
Edward on 137.
I vote no on 137.
Okay. Robin on 137.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Ushma on 137.
Yes.
Tom Rockledge on 137.
Abstain.
Okay. let's see, who did, Maud on 137?
I vote no.
Okay. I'm gonna take my vote. I'm voting no. And who am I missing? Emily?
Len Silverman, I believe.
All right, so Emily Hallstrom on 137?
I vote yes.
Len Silverman on 137?
I vote no.
And that's it. That's 11 votes on 137. And
I believe, sorry, I think I skipped a part that we should have done before vote, which is to make a motion to vote on resolution 137. So I make that motion. If anyone seconds it.
A second.
And Len Silverman seconds it, and we will, and we'll just stick with the already recorded votes. I believe that's 4 yeses, 5 noes, and 1 abstention. Vincent, is that what you have?
let's see, yes, 1 abstention.
I think it's 5-5-1.
Sorry, 5-5-1.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It's 5-5-1.
Okay, I knew that wasn't adding up to 11. Okay, and let's move on to resolution 138.
Okay, so on 138, we'll go in the same order. Ben Morden on 138.
I vote yes for 138.
Eric?
No.
Okay. Shino?
No.
Edward?
Yes.
Robin?
Nope.
Ushma?
Abstain.
Tom?
Yes.
Maud?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Emily?
No.
And Len?
Yes.
There's 1 abstention. 6 yes. And 4 no's.
Correct.
So this 138 passes 6-4 with 1 abstention.
Maud, can you explain to everyone present what happens in the case of a tie?
It doesn't pass.
Yes, I just want everyone to know who's out there, how that works.
Well, we're 11.
Well, I don't think it's a tie. Yeah, you need
There's
6
11
votes
members.
to pass.
Right, so it did not get enough votes to pass.
Sorry, which resolution are you saying didn't get in?
No.
Pass 138 did.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted you to explain that to everyone who's here, just because we have 300 people on.
Oh, you mean on
Everyone may not-
137, it was 5 yes, 5 no, and 1 abstention.
Correct.
Okay, yes, you need 6 votes on an 11-member council to pass a vote. So that is correct. Resolution 137.
We knew that 138 would pass because there were 6 members who actually co-sponsored it. So before we even had the discussion, we knew that was going to pass, right?
That's correct. You knew how you were going to vote as well.
I suspect we all know how we're going to vote on a lot of resolutions coming in, but I have certainly changed my mind by listening to folks that discussions, and I suspect other members have as well. And also just, I think I didn't make a motion before we canceled our vote I moved to pass resolution 138, to vote on and pass resolution 138. Can I get a second for that motion? And Len seconds it as well. Okay, so I would like to, as I said to folks, this resolution that we've now passed and the number of folks who voted for it, against it, and the persons who abstained on each person will be recorded, on each vote rather, will be recorded. I would like to hear from any other parents who have stuff to say, because this conversation, while Robin Broshi mentioned that when she asked for this meeting, when she requested this meeting last week, she was under the impression that the DOE would be making this decision imminently. I was under the same impression. I think we hear from the same folks. But the truth is, I think they have been hearing from a lot of parents, and they are listening. I've had conversations with lots of folks, as I know other council members here have. So I want to hear from people and I want to hear what other people say. So if you have more to say, I'm going to stay on this call and listen, but we've had our vote. No, this is a special meeting. It's not a calendar meeting. Members are not required to stay. Of course, everyone is welcome to stay. But if there's anybody else who wants to speak, I'm very happy to stay and hear them. Michelle, if you would be
Hey,
so
Maud.
kind as to put an updated, I'll get you in one sec, Eric, to put an updated updated speaker list. Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, Eric, go ahead, right ahead.
Yeah, hey, Maud, I just want to share something with the council and with the people on the line, is that in light of this vote, I do think one of the important steps that we need to take is to ensure that in the same way that state test scores, there's transparency and sharing around state test scores by demographics, by schools, that we should also be sharing and releasing that information around grades by school and by demographic. And I think that's one of the missing pieces of information as we debate and consider these issues, is we just don't know, right, how grades are this school. And I'd hope that our superintendent could help us get a landscape view on how schools are administered within, how grades are administered within District 2, and then actually press the DOE to release that information with the same detail they release state test scores. I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Sure. We have had folks, in general, I will say, although Eric and I don't often agree with each other, I happen to agree with Eric that more transparency is better than less. And so that is one area where we can have some agreement, and I always look for areas of agreement. Our superintendent is on the line if she is able to and would like to say hello, either to address that or not, but just to say hello to folks, because we've had an awful lot of people stay here. Superintendent Donalda Chumney, if you would like to say hello to folks, we would love to hear from you.
You are unmuted.
Thank you. I'm walking away from the sound in my apartment. It's great to see all of you. Thank you so much for about 20 minutes, and I'm really bowled over by the participation in this meeting. I have to say that I received over 150 emails today about this issue. It is the most activating issue since I took on this role in January 2019. So parent voice is so important. Thank you all for dedicating the time to share so openly about your perspectives. I hope very much that I'll certainly take what you've said forward, and I thank you for contributing, and I'm hoping very much that we can continue this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Donalda. Thank you very much. Okay, if our updated speaker list, I'm going to go to Kaden Castro-Cudler if there's something you would like to say.
So I don't think Kaden is with us anymore, and neither is Jane Kaufman. So I'm going to go to Jocelyn and Erica asked to go together. So I will unmute them together. And I'm going to assume Erica is just Zoom name Erica. So you will be unmuted.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
I have to put my phone down and get my other computer to read the email she sent me. Sorry. Sorry, Erica, you can't see anything. All right, let's see. I think she, okay, let me hold this back up so the people on here can hear it. She says, there has been a lot of talk about grades. I agree the focus shouldn't be on grades during the crisis, but the people who are supporting the do not harm approach are not focused on the grades. They are focused on the long-term impact on their children. The binary approach does not discard grades for the 2019-2020 school year. It discards work that was done for the years leading up to this point, and for children fourth and on implications for our children well beyond this crisis. So that was Erica, and all I really wanted to say was that as a parent, because no one's going to be happy no matter what happens, right? Someone is going to be unhappy. I'm trying to use this as a teaching moment with my child, and that's really all I wanted to say. I urge other people to do the same. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Jocelyn.
All right, so next, so Jane Kaufman was here. Sorry, Jane, you're unmuted and you can go.
So I
parent of 2 kids in the public school system. I have an 11th grader at Baruch and a 7th grader at Salk. And one of my big concerns now is about the Shizat. If grades are eliminated and the chancellor and the mayor get their way of essentially not having screened schools, the only way that high-performing kids can be guaranteed of an appropriately challenging high school environment is a specialized high school. This now puts tremendous pressure on them for the specialized high school admission test, as if that weren't stressful enough. So, you know, yes, this is a stressful time for everyone. Now you're really going to stress out these kids in the fall. And I think you're going to stress out everybody else for high school, middle school admissions, because there are so many unknowns. And we don't know what these schools are going to be like. So that's a big concern of mine. And just to reiterate what many other people have said, is that eliminating grades, especially grades from the first part of the year, is not going to do anything to feed kids or give them devices or bandwidth or social support or provide for any of those needs. And there are tons of inequities in the system, but they reach back to the very beginnings, and eliminating grades from this year is not going to fix them. And in fact, is going to be much more stressful and discounts all the work, hard work of students and teachers from the whole year. So,
Can I just respond to something that Jane just said?
Yeah.
I think I can tell you that on the District 2 President's Council, which is made up of mostly PTA presidents for District 2, we're very, and I think we all agree, and I think even the people, regardless of what position you took today, we all agree for the need, again, as was mentioned before, for transparency. And what concerns me, and especially our PTA presidents in this district, is when admissions rubrics get changed and we don't know about it until after the fact. And I understand the concern that parents have, and we're trying to address that. I'm not being critical of anyone in our administration in this district, but we do have rubrics that change, and I think that we certainly as a CEC support being made aware of, and that all rubrics be published, and that we know what's going to happen before it happens. I find it markedly unfair when admission rubrics are changed and parents find out about it after the fact.
Yep. Okay. Next we have Julie Wong.
Hi there. Hi there. My name is Julie Huang. I have a 7th grader at Baruch and a senior at LaGuardia High School. So for different reasons, we have a lot of different stressors. The high school students can't seem to enjoy their senior year. And the 7th graders have to sort of think about the specialized high school exam that's coming up. I am concerned that the chancellor has been on this mission to change the way to make sudden changes in the way kids are getting into these schools, whether it's a specialized high school or another high school that looks at grades, and to suddenly eliminate that, which is what Resolution 137 is, based on the last line, which is to change the entire grade 2019 to 2020 academic year to a binary Resolution 137. But you were asking to change the grading system, and kids worked really hard. And if we hear, if DOE is listening, DOE tells us that they're going to eliminate the SAT system, it will be heartbreaking to students who are spending their time right now and their summer getting ready for this exam, studying, keeping their grades up. They're academically challenged kids who've been on this path of trying to do as best as they can. And for things to suddenly change like that, you destroy their motivation and their desire to proceed. And what you're going to have left is it's going to be based on a racial scale. It's not based on more shelter. You don't give more seats to people who are on public welfare system. You're looking at race, and race is not enough, and that is not even correct because it misses everything else. You know, draft Resolution 137. I liked about all the economic reasons why there are so many inequities, but race isn't the only inequity, you know, and so I feel like we're going to come down to a race-based system, and for all the good reasons that all the CEC council members have stated, which I agree with, I think you guys have done a very honorable job to have this forum today, and to give us a chance to talk and to put together these 2 resolutions. I'm fearful that all this is the DOE's way of trying to get their end game, which is to change the SHSET system and to make sure that grades and test scores don't matter anymore, because it's just going to be based on race. Is that something that makes sense to anybody here? So thank
Judy,
you. Sorry, I'm out of
That's okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have Jill Coate. Jill, I don't see you anymore. I'm going to move on to S. Ramaswamy, who is also left. So we will move on to George's iPhone. Okay. George, you're unmuted. George? Okay. And I got note that Jill actually is here, but her Zoom name's different, so I see her. Jill, you're unmuted. You can go.
This meeting to allow our voices to be heard. I'm a PS41 parent of a fourth grader. The inequities do not get resolved by binary grading. Binary grading is not a suitable preparation for our children's future. This is the same issues that we've had faced when, giving every child a trophy. It just does not work. It fails our children. The message to our children is, when you're faced with difficulty, to take the easy way out. A binary system is an on-off switch. This is a switch to stop learning and stop teaching. This would be an opportunity to celebrate. This should be an opportunity to celebrate the hard work our children do in the face of challenges. Our children count. Their work counts. The grades earned should be acknowledged. Many families face unique challenges throughout any given school year. Death, divorce, fire in their homes, health issues of a child or parent, and we do not attempt for pass-fail in those instances. We should be asking the DOE to work on failures to our children, not excuse the DOE failures with binary grading. We must keep the grading consistent during remote learning. Thank you very much.
And I apologize. So S. Ramaswamy is here. I'm going to unmute you. You can go.
Okay, hello. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm a PS198 parent of twins in first grade and also a fourth grader. I think that what I'm going to say kind of echoes the sentiments of what many people have already said here. But there are many, many inequities in our educational system that can't be resolved by dismissing September to March's grades. And if the DOE wanted to solve those issues with the binary grading system, there are a host of other solutions that would actually address those inequity issues, which are kind of beyond the scope of this discussion. And binary scoring is really not the way to solve those challenges. I obviously fully support and understand that many families are really struggling currently with their ability to support instruction, even provide food for their children, being able to work, even have a home for their children. But I think that punishing students by discounting grades from September to March is not the way to solve the age-old inequities in our system. And I think that we as parents need to demand better. This should not be an opportunity for the DOE to kind of really lower standards. I think it's our moral obligation to demand better ways to address those inequities, but eliminating grades is not the way to do it.
All right, I was not able to find Leanne Anderson, so the next person after that is Jane, no last name, which I believe was Jane Kaufman, who already went, and after that we have Lenoa Dar, who I do not see. Moving on to the next name, Pam C. You are unmuted.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having this meeting, and I appreciate all the parents and all the councilmen and their thoughts about our children. I have two children, one in grade 4 and one in grade 2 in PS 77. And my kids are going to be fine. I mean, my kids are being supported at home by their parents. We have all the internet access and everything, etc. So what I'm speaking on is on behalf of all the kids that are in disadvantaged situations. Like many people say, it could be illnesses, it could be divorce, it could be they have no homes. if you eliminate grading, it just eliminates a data point that the other people can point to and say, DOE, do a better job for these children. Provide them with resources that they need. And I think if you eliminate grading, then what is happening is that these children lost be measured anymore, and they will not get the assistance that they need to overcome this deficiency at this time. So I think the best way forward in general is not for DOE to eliminate tests and grades. It's for them to look at real data and say, how can I help these children that are underperforming? Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Michelle, George's iPhone. Okay.
Yes, I saw that note from George. So I've clicked unmute. George, can you try saying
Can I be heard now?
Yes.
That's right. I haven't done Zoom in a while. So yeah, so just very simple comments. My children are in Wagner Middle School in 7th and 8th grade. You know, we're a very competitive family. We're on top of the kids. And this is something that we were raised with from our parents and we push for on a daily basis. So not everyone can do it. Not everyone is doing it. The result is I believe grades should be in place under all circumstances. But I also understand that some families in the home learning environment are not doing great. I mean, we struggled to get the computers and the internet system locked in and working. And it's, you know, the Wagner is a great school, but some of the teachers were not motivated to be interactive with our kids. So I do see grading as important throughout the entire year, but I would put an asterisk on the grades for March 23rd to June 26th, because the level of intensity from the teachers wasn't there. And if you don't have the parents on top of them or the ability to be on top of them, grades will fall. But you should have the parents and the students able to explain it rather than eliminating it. Because if you eliminate grades, the incentive to do the work also gets eliminated. And that lack of a motivation is not a good message. So yes on grades, but put an asterisk on what happens in the remote environment where people may not have been able to keep up, and maybe the teachers weren't keeping up with the kids either.
All right, next, Allison Poster Katz, I do not see you. So afterwards we have Michelle Levitt. You are now unmuted.
Hi. So I think most of the points that I wanted to make have been mentioned, but I would say one thing. I think our children are pretty resilient, maybe more resilient than we are. But I think it's one thing to say we're not going to count 3 months of grades, and it's another thing to say we're going to throw out the year, and most significantly for 4th and 7th graders, we're going to throw out the social contract we've had with you, where we've told you from the start what is expected from you and how you move forward. And that to me is truly demoralizing, more so than 3 months. So I hear Eric's concerns, which I think are broader than the issue at hand. And if you're concerned about 3 months of hard times, I think you would be much more concerned about throwing out the agreement we've really had with our children, between the schools and our children, of what those expectations of them are. And I'm frustrated that we're conflating the broader problems with the DOE with the problem we're ostensibly trying to talk about today. And people complain about this on the national politics level all the time, especially Democrats. And yet that's exactly what we're doing here. We're trying to get a bigger issue solved than when we're talking about. So I definitely favor keeping grades in and a more nuanced approach than one side, you know, a pass-fail type system, whether it's satisfactory or not satisfactory. And I understand there are differences in the school, but I would just sum up and say the kids understand what their school expects for them, and that's where they live. And that's what we've told them we expect them to achieve by what they've been told in their individual school. And I think we owe it to them to keep that in place as best we can. And therefore, we should have grades in place for this year and keep something akin to what they knew before the COVID crisis happened.
All right, next we have Natalia, who I don't see you. I'm just gonna move on to the next person. Carlin Hale, you are unmuted.
Hey, actually Connor Hale, her husband. So I wish I'd been able to speak a little bit earlier. I'm an assistant principal in District 2. Now, my school is a high school, and what we hear from our students, we set up our online learning platform March 5th, and I've heard from hundreds of students, and what I hear from them is the work I'm going to do during this time going to be counted? And for a student, that always means, is it going to be graded? We had our meeting this morning. I'm one of the 2 academic assistant principals, and we've adopted essentially 138. We're saying that we will hold no student harmless if they do not have access to technology or some other issue, whether sickness or death in the family. And they get what's called an NX code, and that carries on into the next semester, whether that be the summer term or all the way up to January, depending on how this plays out with the epidemiologists. I don't see it sensible. If you're throwing out Fs, you're throwing out As for all the way up to March. The only other would March 3rd is day policy. I have teachers who were not able to access their offices once we closed. They had a bunch of work. They said, what do I do about the grades of the things I didn't gather? It'd have to be a look back a couple weeks before that. But I very much appreciate Maud and your thoughts and comments, and hope that we come up with something a little more nuanced.
All right, so Natalia actually was here just under a different name. I'm trying to unmute you right now. I think you have to accept on your end, but you can go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thank you. So I totally agree with the person who speak, like two places before me. I think we had before all this crisis, and we understand. So I think at this point we are discussing what we're gonna do, during this pandemic. So there is a lot of things that we should have done before that we have not, and we shouldn't include that. So this kind of be a master agenda just to solve everything. So I think we already have a baseline for our kids. We, teachers, school, students, EAPs, support system were already in place from September to March. So I think that should be our baseline. And then, so we recognize that it's a big distortion in the system right now because of this virus. So yes, so let's try to move and let's try to change current policies from March to the end of the school year. So I am a mom of 2 kids, one in 7th grade and one in 4th grade. So they both should go to an application process in September. So with all the uncertainties that we have now in the system, so adding another level, it's, really, it's not helping anybody. We already don't know about how the rubrics will be for middle schools and for high school. We already eliminated 2 of the baselines that we have, that is attendance and the state test. So moving on to basically no measurement at all is very stressful for the kids, for the teachers, for everyone. So if you're going to apply to a private school, for example, you need something. And at this point, we cannot share anything. So I totally agree that we have to do something from March to June, but as you do statistically, so you can keep your baseline when that was working, and that was from September to March.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And our last public speaker is Onilda. You are now unmuted. Onilda Cruz, you're unmuted.
Hi, you could hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to at least voice also my opinion that I 100% agree with going forward with grades. It's the norm that our kids have been used to since they ever started school. For myself, I'm a parent of a 6th grader in Baruch, and at home we are very competitive. My son is very competitive. We do lack some needs, but we go the extra mile for everything so he could get the tools that he needs. The first thing I did immediately was go to the school and get a laptop, which then when we came home, it was not working. So I have a daughter in college and they share the computer, and for most of the part, they've been using the iPad. For me in particular, my son is gonna be going, he got admitted into Horace Mann, and he's going in September. Well, with all these uncertainties, I don't even know what's gonna happen with Horace Mann come September, or will he go back to Baruch? So I am not, as many parents on TV and everything, so concerned over their children falling behind, because our kids are in District 2, and before that he was at Midtown West, but we've always found the means to not depend only on our teachers, which I love each and every one of the teachers that I've had. Way before the schools even did IXL, we've always done IXL and done the extra work. And, he practiced SAT words. He's always been that child to try to improve anything anyway. But right now, for the first time ever, it has been a bit of a struggle having him do the work that's online, because he's never done work online. And sometimes he logs in early in the morning and the assignments are not there. First of all, I don't even understand why is it that they're not taking the state test. Some way, somehow, the kids could have still taken the state test, or maybe over the summer. I'm okay with the state test because, yes, regardless, not just us and anyone that has what they need, but anyone else going forward with children that are behind on anything should also see where they're at and where they need the work going forward for the next grade. May it be 5th grade, 7th or 8th grade, to see what they're lacking and what they fell behind on. So I just wanted to be able to tell you, number one, thank you for doing this, but 2, that I do believe that the no harm grade will ultimately harm the child.
Thank you very much. So you guys, I will say 300 people present. We're down to a mere 165 people on this Zoom call. But what I would like to say is an enormous, enormous thank you to Michelle Chang, who has done an enormous amount of work at our calendar meetings in the past, at our working meetings. And she had her hands full tonight because there were so many people. I try really hard to listen to every comment that people make, but also look in the chat. And it is really a difficult task to try to do both. And she's awesome. And she is, doing this for District 2 and for all these parents. And Michelle, I say to you, thank you.
Oh,
and I know if everyone was unmuted, they would be saying the same thing. But all this quiet agreement is because lots of parents are thanking you as well. So thank you very much. And I will say, I think are we at the end of our speaking list? I believe we are, right, Michelle? Yeah. Thank you all for joining us, for speaking up. I will additional other important issues that come out. Individual council members can, of course, send out important information on other topics as well. And there are many. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for listening. Len, thank you for the comic relief. and I look forward to hearing from you all again in the future. Thank you.
Brainstorm your idea.
Maud, would you like me to end the meeting, or should I first unmute council members?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. So I will go around and try unmuting all the council members. Okay.
Well, and why don't we also get a picture of the family?
Okay. All right, I think I got everyone I can see, if anyone has anything to say, or you could message me privately and I can unmute you.
No. Go pick a board game.
All right, do I have any council members who want to add anything, any business points? Jennifer Greenblatt is there, our family leadership coordinator for District 2. Is there anything we missed? Anything we should have done procedurally? I think we're all good.
Could have been a little more stringent on the motions.
Yeah, the motions was a little sloppy.
It's all those in favor of staying open.
I apologize for that. We
Okay.
still got.
Maud, this is
Yes,
Ben
Ben
Morden.
Morden. Yes.
Yes, Maud. I think we should maybe discuss if we can post these meetings up on YouTube as a.
Yeah, yes, I tried to send you the meeting, our last Zoom, which I recorded, whether it was working, and I know you wrote me back and said there was some issue. Can you just nudge me and bug me so we get that sorted out so that I send you the right information you need to post it? We have a YouTube channel now, CEC2, that we created so that we could post these in lieu of minutes.
Right,
So,
and can we add this recording and going forward use that? I mean, is that agreed to?
I don't see why we couldn't if other council members have a concern or an issue, because we're using that for our calendar meetings as our minutes. I mean, we can come up with some written minutes as well, but as a way to, let people who weren't able to attend a Zoom meeting to see or hear what went on.
Okay, and also I thought it was quite brilliant that we had one of the parents used Instagram to live stream this.
Yes,
I
Jocelyn
think.
Anchor, thank you to her as well.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Shall we try to then utilize our Facebook? You mentioned about our account. Where does it stand, and how can we initiate that? If not, and if we can't recapture that, I see that we have about 130 posts there. A lot of them are not from our CEC2. We can easily start a new Facebook group if
we can't get the sign in for the old Facebook post, I suggest we start a new one and keep it updated that way. And we can then stream something like this. If we have more instances where more than 300 people want to join, we can stream on Facebook and post that sign-in data earlier so that we don't get delayed as we did tonight. That would be my suggestion. I do not raise my hand to volunteer to set it up because that's not my strength, but then
I'll volunteer to set up the Facebook group, but it would be a lot easier if we could get the Facebook page that we already have existing. It would be a shame to lose it, but we have to move forward because it's too vital.
I agree with you 100%, Ben. I will send a final email to the council member who started that, and then we'll try to move forward on that.
Great.
Emily has her hand up.
I just, in our regular meetings, which obviously this is not regular, but there is a protocol that we have, and we're learning the new protocols. Obviously, having 300 people on a call was something new, and obviously many, many more who are not able to get in. I worry. I want to hear from the public, and I think it's super, super important. It's why we have these meetings. I am very concerned about the chat. The people making comments on other speakers and back and forth, and even did chatting myself, and because it's very accessible, and it sort of leads to a discourse that isn't necessarily like, for example, when we have like an open public where people speak for minutes, we don't allow then other people to comment on what they're saying, and that sort of became the thing that happened in the chat group. And so I worry that it could really devolve downward, and that I think we should just take a look at, since we are obviously for this foreseeable future going to have these meetings, and certainly the issues are only going to become more intense as time goes on. And so I do think it's really going to be really important for us to examine how we best balance getting the perspective, the robust conversations, but also limiting the sort of, comment upon someone else's comment that can be really, it just can degrade the conversation.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, other council members, any other thoughts? Yes, I'm seeing in the chat now that we should try to keep it civil. I couldn't agree more. I agree with Emily. How to enforce that / encourage it, which I think is more likely, is the super tricky part. I'm always open to suggestions. Vincent, did you want to say something?
No. I just thought the meeting was over before, so that's why I started to get off.
Back?
But yeah, I came
right.
back.
We're the lingering types. Okay,
I want
folks.
to ask Michelle a question. Michelle,
Yes.
can you get guidance on how a chat should be used in a CEC meeting? Because I think what Emily said is right, and I was thinking it myself, there's a whole conversation going on here that wouldn't happen if it was a meeting, you know, in a place rather than virtually. So what is the legal opinion on using chat or not?
Yeah,
That's a good question on the legal chat. I'll just throw out too, though, that there's a downside because people are snarky and rude, but there's also an upside, which is that a conversation among a broader community that can't normally get together gets to happen. And so I do want to throw in that there's a positive as well as a negative, and that if we can figure out how to protect the positive a little bit, that has value.
I just feel it's really tough when somebody, I mean, I just saw on the chat when someone was speaking that 2 or 3 people were talking about the person speaking and disparaging things what they were saying, and that can really be bad.
Bad manners are bad manners. I don't agree with it, but I also think that there's a downside to the chat, and which is you've identified, Emily, and there's an upside, which is that folks who are who are interested in enough in an issue to listen to 300 other people talk for several hours are engaged enough to want to share opinions with other people, and the chat has a benefit in that way. It lets other conversations, also I've seen people post links to websites that I found information off of chats when I've been on Zoom meetings, so there's a positive in terms of information dissemination.
I agree. I understand that, and I think that there's a way of like contacting those people and creating your own Zoom meeting. This is a CEC meeting, so you know, if people want to have those types of conversations, they can have them in a different type of forum. So either the moderator has to be more, you know, or one suggestion would be the moderator, which I don't suggest be you, Michelle, but somehow we have to keep this conversation civil.
Emily, we'll have a working business meeting coming up that we can discuss that in, and we'll come up with more ideas.
Perfect.
Okay, folks, thank you very, very much. I'm sure you all need to get to do as I do. I think
heroic.
You can sign us all out.
Yep. All right. So, welcome. All right, so I'll just end the meeting. Have a good night, everybody, and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night. Stay safe.